This is the greatest financial experiment in human history, and most people don't even realize they're living inside it. Today, total global debt, the debt of governments, corporations, and families, is higher than any civilization in history has ever carried. Governments borrow trillions of dollars as if it were play money. Central banks create money with a few keystrokes. Families take 30-year mortgages as if it's as normal as grocery shopping. And we still talk about debt as if it's a natural part of life. But the truth is far deeper and far more unsettling. Debt has always been a tool of power, a mechanism of control, and like a sleeping bomb, it waits for the right moment. The real question is not if this system will collapse, but when. And when it does, who will pay the price? To understand how we got here, we need to look back. Debt is as old as humanity itself. Even the first clay tablets of Mesopotamia recorded who owed what to whom. In fact, writing itself was invented to keep track of debt. Back then, debt wasn't just economic, it was sacred. Priests and kings managed debts, and sometimes, to prevent the people from being crushed, they declared a debt jubilee, a full reset, because they understood one truth. You can't chain a society to debt forever. At some point, the system breaks. Time passed, the Renaissance arrived, and banking families took the stage, like the Medicis of Florence. Debt was no longer measured in grain or cattle, but in gold and credit. Kings and popes borrowed money. Wars, cathedrals, and empires were built on it. But every debt had a limit. Even Spain, despite receiving tons of silver from the New World, went bankrupt 4 times in the 16th century. The first lesson is clear. No matter how rich you are, if you borrow beyond reality, you fall. By the 20th century, debt was everywhere. After World War I, countries struggled to survive under massive debt. Germany, crushed by the Treaty of Versailles, was burdened so heavily that economists warned it would collapse, and they were right. In the 1920s, Germans had to carry wheelbarrows full of money just to buy bread. That crisis eventually dragged the entire world into another war. Then came Bretton Woods in 1944. The US, holding most of the world's gold, set the rules. The dollar was tied to gold, and other currencies were tied to the dollar. It looked stable, but it created dependency. By the 1960s, things started to crack. The US printed more dollars than it had gold to fund the Vietnam War and domestic spending. When foreign nations demanded their gold back, Nixon closed the gold window in 1971. The dollar was no longer backed by gold, and debt became limitless. Now central banks could steer the economy by manipulating interest rates. When growth slowed, they cut rates. When crisis hit, they added more debt. Each rescue required bigger debt than before. In the 1980s, under Reagan and Thatcher, governments fueled debt explosions in the name of reform. Developing nations borrowed heavily from the West, but couldn't pay it back, leading to the Latin American debt crisis. Then came 2008, and the world shook again. It looked like a housing crisis, but the real issue was debt. Layers upon layers of borrowed money, packaged, insured, leveraged, a giant pyramid. When one piece fell, the system collapsed. And who was saved? Banks and corporations. Who paid the price? Ordinary people. Those who lost their jobs, their homes, their futures. Today, the numbers are beyond comprehension. By 2023, global debt surpassed $300 trillion, almost 4 times the size of the world economy. The US adds trillions every year. Japan's public debt exceeds 200% of its GDP, and developing countries are suffocating under dollar-denominated debt. The system acts as if debt can grow forever, but nothing grows forever. Debt changes behavior, inflates bubbles, funnels wealth upward, and most dangerously, mortgages the future. Every debt we take today steals from someone's labor tomorrow. History has written the same ending over and over. Debt is either paid, inflated away, or erased through default. There is no escape. But now debt is so invisible, no one even notices. When governments run deficits, they don't ask you for money. They sell bonds, quietly borrowing in your name. When you buy with a credit card, you're not paying, you're borrowing. When companies report profits, they're often inflated by borrowed money. The system grows on leverage. But leverage feels light on the way up, and deadly on the way down. Today's global economy runs on promises, and most of those promises cannot be kept. US debt has surpassed $34 trillion. Its annual interest payments now rival its entire defense budget. America now borrows money just to pay the interest on its debt. Politicians love debt because it's painless. Raising taxes is unpopular. Cutting spending is worse, but borrowing easy. And the cost passed to the next generation. When interest rates rise, the truth emerges. Debt suddenly becomes heavy. Mortgages, government budgets, corporate loans, all start to break. Debt is harmless when it sleeps, but deadly when it wakes. Still, debt is sold as an opportunity. Student loans, mortgages, quantitative easing, modern miracles, they say. But this is the great lie of our age. Debt is not infinite, not safe, not free. History says the opposite. So what happens next? History offers 3 paths. 1. Inflation, quietly erasing debt's value. 2. Restructuring, admitting we can't pay. Default, refusing to pay at all. None are pleasant, but inflation is the easiest, and that's the path we're on. Because inflation silently steals from the people, while keeping the system alive. Your salary, your savings, your purchasing power shrink, but the machine keeps running. It's the oldest trick in the book, and every generation falls for it again. Because debt is invisible, and the system keeps whispering, this isn't your problem. But debt is never just about money. It's about power. Who lends, who borrows, who gets saved? When crisis comes, banks are rescued. Corporations reorganize. Politicians move on. But ordinary people lose their homes, their jobs, their hope. That's why understanding debt isn't just financial knowledge. It's survival. If you can't see the system, you live inside it, chained. So what can you do? See the truth. Debt isn't neutral. Every debt has a cost. Remember history. No empire has ever escaped its debt. Protect yourself. Build real value, knowledge, awareness, resilient assets. Because the system will repeat the same mistakes again. History is clear. Debt grows, leaders deny, crisis hits, society resets. The only difference will be this. Will you live that cycle blind and or awake? If you understand it, you can escape it. If you don't, you'll pay for others' mistakes. Global debt isn't just a number. It's the shadow cast over our future. And if we don't learn from history, it will crush us, just like it crushed those before us. If this gave you a new perspective, subscribe. Because all the answers are hidden in history, and I'll show you where to look.